what's your name? I said, Harry Webb. He said, okay, Harry Webb and the Drifters. And I said, no. I'm the lead singer of the Drifters. Anyway, he said, well, if you don't let me put your name up, I won't book you. So we went down the road to a bar and tried to think of a name, and that's where Cliff Richard was born. And I chucked away my other name, and I became Cliff.
Well, Cliff, firstly, welcome back to Gold. It's terrific to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
So how are you?
I love the word gold.
How are you? How are you enjoying being back in the UK for a while?
Fabulous. I mean, I always enjoy my visits here. I mean, this time it's been really fraught with all sorts of things I'm having to do. But, you know, when you make a record, you expect to have to go out and sell it, particularly these days when people are not really buying records anymore. They're buying Spotify and stuff like that. But so for me, it's fantastic. And my record's number two to, what's his name?
Stormzy.
Stormzy. You know, I've never met him. So I can't wait to meet him. I've heard really nice things about him.
Well,
but I don't like the fact that he's number one. But
not for long, he's not.
No, but you have to remember, see, I'm at number two.
Yeah.
My record was going up. He only has one way to go, and that's down.
Well, it's a terrific Christmas album, I got to say.
Thank you.
How did Christmas with Cliff come about?
Well, it came about because the Warner Music got hold of my office and said, we'd like to do an album of Christmas songs with Cliff. I didn't realize it's been 19 years since I last did one. So I said, well, I'm not against that. I said, but you better send me what you think I should sing. And they sent me, I don't know, but 150 songs. I had no idea that there were that many classic old Christmas songs. Anyway, I picked out the ones that I liked and that I hadn't recorded before.
Okay, I was going to ask you how you chose those.
Well, it was just this long list, and I thought, well, first of all, I've done this one, done that one. So I chose the ones that I liked, but that I'd never recorded. And I did say to them, though, well, let's do the album, but if I can find 2 or 3 new songs, would you be happy? They said, send it to us. So we did send them the demos, the ones I liked, and they liked all 3 of them. So there were 3 good new ones there as well.
Yeah, it's just perfect, this album, to enjoy over Christmas with friends and family. It's got a beautiful mix of new songs and festive favourites. And one of the standout songs is Heart of Christmas, because it's really catchy. And it's got that magical Christmas feel, you know.
Well, it's got the Christmas story in it. And everything that we recognize about Christmas, about, you know, the streets are full of lights and things like that. You know that when you walk down Oxford Street and Regent Street during Christmas time, everything is glowing and fantastic. So there's that feel of Christmas. But I think what made it for me was to hear that holy, holy, holy. Like it's a hook. And in fact, I was saying to someone today, this is the first single I've released that I can't stop singing. Just that holy, holy bit.
It's very catchy. There's a great variety on this album, like you're saying. Yeah. I like the gospel song, Go Tell It on the Mountain.
Yes.
That sounds terrific. And then you've got, you kick off the album with It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, good old Christmas favourite.
Well, that's fantastic. I remember seeing it on television when I can't remember his name. He used to do famous shows, Christmas shows in America, but we used to get it. And I heard his version and I thought, I never thought I'd record it, but when this came up, I looked for it and it was on the list. So I couldn't wait to get my tonsils around that.
Andy Williams did a
Andy
big
Williams
version
is what
of
I'm
that.
thinking of, yeah.
And then it's Sleigh Ride, which is a great start to the album.
That's got a little tricky bit. Sam Hollander, who produced that one, said, would you mind if I use bits from your other records? In fact, he just chose 2 little bits on the album, and one happens in this one. You think you're going to listen to Sleigh Ride, and suddenly it goes da 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 da,
Boom, 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 boom.
something from Congratulations, and of course the song is completely different. So he had fun with it, and I had fun with it too.
Yeah, and then there's a terrific version of Blue Christmas, the Elvis song.
That's the one I said, if we're going to do this, I must sing that. And, you know, the thing is, of course, Elvis it's the classic, it's the way that's the way all of us heard it first, and it's iconic version. So I tried to make it slightly different, so I don't sing it quite like him, but I added things like, I did my own backing vocals on some of it, you know, I'll have a blue, and I got my backing vocals go, blue, blue, Christmas, Christmas without you, Christmas without you. So I did these little harmonies myself, and then the girls that come in actually do what was on Elvis's. And I just hope if there's Elvis fans, and I'm sure they will be listening to you. I just hope that I haven't spoilt it for them. I just wanted to make it mine.
Something else that I think is such a good idea is how it's been made available in a magazine format, which is, you know, a good idea because you get the CD, you get the lyrics, and you get a special message from you.
And some photographs.
and a lot of behind-the-scenes insights into the making of the album, which is terrific. It's like when you got an album in the 70s and you got the gatefold sleeve. You get the music, the lyrics, and a whole lot more.
Yeah, well, I've never done the magazine thing before, but, you know, supermarkets and places were pretty good places to sell records. But as people don't buy as many records, it's a little more difficult. So this magazine came up. They said you can have a magazine and you can have your CD inside it. The interesting thing is, if we put it on the outside, the CD, it wouldn't count as a sale for the charts. And so we said, well, what? They said, no, you can have it on the inside of the magazine, and therefore it counts in the chart count up. I can't understand why they would do that, but we did what they asked, and it's been going really well.
Now, this album was recorded at Criteria in Miami.
Yeah.
Which is where Hotel California was recorded, and the Bee Gees recorded lots of songs there.
Yep. It was Barry that told me about it. He'd done, you know, Staying Alive and all that stuff over there. And I said, well, anywhere you've been, I'd like to be. And I got used to I've done about 3-4 albums there, and the engineers got used to the way I sing and the sound of my voice. So I find them trustworthy. And so I enjoyed recording there. And of course, it's funny doing a Christmas album where it's 85 degrees outside, but when you're inside the studio and you've got your headset on and you're hearing dun, 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 I could be anywhere in the world. It wouldn't matter. It's still, the song itself tells you it's Christmas and this is how you should do it.
Back in 1958, which is almost 65 years ago, you recorded Move It at Abbey Road. And I just wanted to ask you, how did it feel walking into Abbey Road, you know, when you were 17 years old?
It's, I can only remember it, first of all, when we were singing and playing. I had 2 friends who played guitar and one guy that played drums. And we'd go and play bars and pubs and things in Hoddesdon, in Hertfordshire mostly. And we had no idea of where a studio. We knew that Elvis recorded in a studio, and we didn't know where they were. And suddenly we got the chance. This guy walked into the pub once where we played, and after he'd listened to us, he came over. He was wearing a black leather jacket, and he leaned on the bar and he said, I can make you a star. Well, my band and I fell over laughing, and when we got up, he was still there, and he still said, no, I'm not, I'm serious. And he's the one that got us into the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in the West End, where Tommy Steele had been discovered, and I think Terry Dean as well. So we thought, okay, we'll go and play. We didn't get discovered there, really, but it started things. And it moved on fairly quickly because there was a guy there one of the nights. His name was Harry Gratrix. And he said, I'd like to put you in the band in my ballroom in Derbyshire, Ripley in Derbyshire. And he said, well, I'll pay you 25 quid. And I thought, oh, we only got £5 for the whole week in Two Eyes. So we said, okay, we'll do that. And he said, okay, I'll put, what's your name? I said, Harry Webb. He said, okay, Harry Webb and the Drifters. And I said, no. I'm the lead singer of the Drifters. Anyway, he said, well, if you don't let me put your name up, I won't book you. So we went down the road to a bar and tried to think of a name, and that's where Cliff Richard was born. And I chucked away my other name, and I became Cliff.
There's a new documentary all about Abbey Road coming out, which I know you've been involved in.
Yes.
And it's been put together by Mary McCartney, and it's called If These Walls Could Sing. And it features lots and lots of big stars, including yourself, who've recorded there. And I just wanted to ask you, why do you think Abbey Road was so special?
Well, I think it was special before we got there, but it was a different form of music. You know, I mean, I started 5 years before the Beatles, so 58, we'd barely got... In 53, Elvis came along, and that inspired us to... Now we knew where we wanted to go, and it was just fantastic to go in there, knowing that all these other artists had been singing in the place. And it by coincidence, same as the Beatles, and we started there 5 years before the Beatles, we were shown to Studio 2, which was a massive, big studio. Probably orchestras normally would play there. I was in one corner with a kind of thing around me to shield my microphone from the band. And I was told that we don't need you to play guitar, just sing. And it was Move It, of course. So we did that, and of course it went to number 2 in the charts. Now everybody thinks the Beatles kind of owned it. They owned Studio 2. In actual fact, I owned it, and I just rented to them, just a little bit off, on and off. But of course, we'll never be able to take it away from them that they made Abbey Road famous.
Yeah.
We were early. We were doing singles for 2 or 3 years. They came in, singles, and then albums. And of course, Abbey Road album came out, and of course, that's what made the studio famous. But I still like to think that really, I helped make it famous too,
Yeah.
but I didn't make an album called Abbey Road.
And John Lennon said about Move It that there was nothing worth listening to in England before Cliff Richard and the song Move It came along.
I know. God bless him for saying that, because quite often I've done interviews and the journalists sometimes say, you're not really cool. And I just say, well, John Lennon thought I was pretty cool, so I'll make your argument known to him. But it was a fantastic thing for him to say that, because it's helped me a great deal. And of course, Move It was one of the first records made in Britain that sounded Americanish. And because we were influenced them, and I still say there would have been no Beatles, no Cliff Richard, if it hadn't been for Elvis, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers, Chuck Berry. We learned everything from them. Even though we didn't quite know what we were doing, we were influenced, and slowly, I feel that the album I did with my band called Me and My Shadows was the first album where I listen to it and think, it sounds rock and roll, but it's European as well. And so I felt that we made this become ours as well as the American stuff.
Back then, I think it was when it was Cliff and the Drifters, or it might have been later, I read that you bought Hank Marvin and the band red Fender Strat guitars. Is that pink?
Fenders have denounced it, that they never did a pink, and I said it was definitely pink, and Hank and Bruce both agree with me. And then it turns out we should have said flamingo pink. So it was. But what I did was we'd be playing, and Hank used to play all sorts of different guitars, and he was good on it. It was obvious that he was great, and it turned out inspiring guitarist. But he said once, the Fender, listen to Chuck Berry and all these people, Ricky Nelson, if the Fender, if we had a Fender, we could join this sound group. So I was the first person to bring in the first Fender guitar into Britain, and I gave it to Hank to play for me, so that I had a band that played, and of course they used it for themselves as well. We shared that guitar, although I own it, and all the Apaches and all of that thing came out. In fact, Apache I have a love and hate replacement that, because the promoter at the time of records by us said, the Shadows are doing an instrumental, that's going to be very tough to get it into the charts. He said, but if I could tell the press and everybody that you play something on it, it might help. So in the intro of Apache, there's this drum thing that goes doo 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 doo, and that was me. So I helped them, and would you believe it? The record went to number 1, and you know who they knocked off of number 1 place?
I don't know. I can't.
Me. I had a number 1 with Please Don't Tease. I helped them make Apache, and they knocked me off, the devils. Fantastic time.
What a story.
And Apache, I think, was number 1 for 5 or 6 weeks.
Well, let's talk about next year a little bit, because I know you've got a few dates planned later on in the year for the Blue Sapphire tour.
Yes. Originally, what I did was, when we released this album, I thought to myself, it's too early to do a concert with this now, because people won't know it, and it's almost Christmas now. So I think I left it too late, but I asked my manager to get me the Albert Hall for a week. Yeah. And he said, don't hold your breath. And of course, they weren't available. And my manager said to me that, you probably don't know this, but there was one time when we had to book the Albert Hall 5 years in advance. And he said, many other times it's 2 years in advance. So I messed that one up by not making my mind up soon enough. But so we're doing 6 concerts at what used to be the Apollo.
Yeah, Hammersmith.
It used to be Labatt's. It's called something else now. Eventim.
Yeah.
Eventim Apollo. I'm doing 6 shows there, and 1 in Blackpool and 1 in Glasgow.
Yeah.
I left it too late to get any more.
But first, I don't know whether you know this, but you must know this. In January, it's the 60th anniversary of the film Summer Holiday.
Well, you know, I can't believe it's impossible for me to even connect with this sometimes. You know, because when we started The Shadows and I, we were sometimes written off as one-hit wonders, here today, gone tomorrow. And when you read that a lot, you start to believe, oh, perhaps they're right. And then suddenly we were at our 10th year, and we got together and made an album. And then suddenly it was 15 years in, and I didn't have The Shadows, but I was still working with other musicians. And I thought, oh, it means that longevity can be with a rock and roller's grasp if you're willing to. You have to work at it, though. I found myself working much harder to keep it up. And now the surprise is for me is that, you know, Stormzy is competing with me, and it's fantastic. I can't believe that this could happen to me. And next year is my 65th year singing.
Yes.
So I don't know how long I can go on. I've been lucky in one thing, and that my throat hasn't given me too much trouble. Yes, everybody gets flu at sometimes and things like that. But in all my careers, I can only remember cancelling 3 concerts. And so I feel comfortable doing concerts. And of course, next year it's going to be 8. That will be probably one of the easiest tours I've done. I just got to have plenty of rest in between. You know, you can't keep on singing, especially when you know, I'm 60 now.
Well, listen, Cliff, have a very Merry Christmas. Is it going to be in the warm sunshine of Barbados?
No, it'll be in the warm sunshine of Florida.
All right.
I've got a whole bunch of friends there, and I was there before I came back to England to do all this promotion work, and they'd said, are you going to be here for Christmas? And I said, well, what's the offer? And they said, so they're having a big party, and I've been invited. So I'll be there for Christmas, and I'll go in the beginning of the new year. I'll go to Barbados and stay there for the season, actually, which goes on through January, February, March, April, May, and a bit of June.
Yeah. All right, Cliff, thanks very much for coming in.
Not at all. It's my pleasure. Thanks for all your help.